Hey, this is Joe Simpson of Radical Application Development, and it's been a while since I've taken a look at a new version of FileMaker. I've been working on FileMaker 15 for the last couple of years, and I skipped version 16 entirely, but FileMaker 17 came out yesterday, so I thought I would take a look and see what has changed and kind of learn some new features along the way. So I've given myself the task of creating kind of a workflow app, just a little bit of projects and tasks to help with my business. I'm working in game development as well as a little bit of FileMaker development, and I've been getting really into 3D modeling in a program called Blender. And as I make assets in Blender, there's a lot of little things that I need to just one-off tasks that I need to check off a list and make myself remember to do because they're really easy to miss. And there's about 18 of these things that I've uncovered so far, and they're just simple things. They're repeatable. They need to happen. I need to at least think about them for every single model that I do. So I've been using Trello for that for the last week or so, but I thought, I need to take another look at FileMaker 17, so this is a good time to kind of automate that workflow in FileMaker and get it out of Trello. So this is what I built so far. This took about 6 hours today, just kind of figuring out what I was going to build and then just taking a look at some of the new features in FileMaker. So both new 17 features as well as FileMaker 16 features that I hadn't used before, like the card layouts and the JSON functions, things like that. So let's dive in and take a look. First thing first, let's go to the database and say we've got about 6 tables right now. One of them is just a global table with a couple of convenience fields. Really the data lives in projects and tasks, and there is some time tracking and notes. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep this checklist table. We'll come back to that in a moment. In terms of, I guess we can take a look at the relationships too. That's pretty basic right now. There's a project table occurrence group and a task table occurrence group, and pretty much all the action is happening on those two levels. Everything else is just kind of sitting out here waiting for something to happen. As far as the interface goes, I'm using 2 main layouts, projects and tasks, and I'm using a new feature in FileMaker 17 where you can use a portal to make a master detail layout. And this is really, really cool. You basically can just drag in, that's the wrong thing. You can drag in a portal and then set it to current table, and that's pretty much it. You now have a master detail. So as we click around this portal, you can see up here we're changing which record we're on. And I've built quite a few master detail layouts myself all the way back to version 17. It was one of the first things I figured out how to do in FileMaker when I didn't even understand basic relationships. I just knew that that was a design pattern that I saw in a ton of apps, and I couldn't figure out why FileMaker didn't have it natively. So I figured out how to make it myself, and it took a really long time, and it broke all the time. But having done that over the years and then used some of the modular FileMaker approaches, and it's always been something that takes a bunch of relationships and scripts and some visual stuff with layout objects, and now you can just throw all that away and just drag a portal onto the layout and it's solved. It's really great. So other things, I guess let's just go over the layout. The project tab of the project layout is basically just some metadata, the project name. I give all of my projects a code that I use across various systems. There's a simple status field, and there is just a basic description. Projects will have tasks, and there are multiple types of tasks. And then project will have notes. So we can add a note, and this is using FileMaker 16's card window. So it's a script step. It's an addition to the new window script step where you can make a new window that functions as a card. And we can just add in a note here and save that. And it goes right to the bottom of the list. I should probably change that so it goes to the top of that list, which I may think about doing that tomorrow. So you can reopen that card and click on that. We can delete that record and move on. tasks work very similar. So from projects, I tend to enter quite a few tasks all at once, and I wanted a quick way to do a bunch of data entry without doing a bunch of repetitive windows and opening windows and closing windows and clicking buttons. I just didn't want to do that. So I used a similar approach with the card window, only this time I gave myself a feature where I can just keep adding another task and it'll automatically populate the project. So we can say task 1 and say simple, add something in, and do another one and say this one's going to be a checklist, and let's make it new, add something else, and then hit done. So we've got 2 new tasks down here at the bottom, a simple one and a checklist item, and we can go to that layout. There's a go to related record here, but before I click that button, pay attention to this portal. So we've got these records here. We're going to click this button, and now we're on the task layout. So we were on the project layout, now we're on the task layout, and you can see the portal over here. This is also a master detail layout, and we've stayed in the same set of records that we were looking at in the portal. Our found set is now the same. I don't have a lot of records in this to toggle into something else, but our found set has stayed the same, and we've stayed in the same sort order. It's pretty cool. So we can actually work in a portal in one layout, use go to related records, and kind of have that portal for navigation purposes on the other layout. I thought that was really great. So in terms of tasks, this is where most of the action happens. Like I mentioned, there's a simple type, and the simple type is basically this task is done or it's not. If it's not checked off, it's not done. Now it's done. That's really all there is to it. That's why I called it simple. The other type is called checklist, and these are those tasks. So going back to my example of the low poly workflow or the 3D modeling workflow, I would make a new task and say I need a chair, and it's going to have a checklist, and then I would maybe write something about the chair, and I could go to that new task. Here's our chair record, and at this point I would add in any reference images for it here, so I could drag those in from the internet, write up any notes about what it is that I want to make, and the checklist items would be those kind of just repeatable items. So there's 18 to 20 things I need to do on every single one of these individual models. So in this case, I haven't figured out how I'm going to do that yet. I could make a template table and kind of parse those out on each project. If I think I'm only going to have one checklist per project, then I may actually just make a text field on the project's layout, on the project's table, and just write in a bunch of checklist values there and parse them out as needed. That's not a very future-proofed way, and it's definitely a lazy way of doing it. The other way is to create more of a modular approach where I could have types, like basically create a checklist table from projects related to projects, and then checklist items related to the checklist table, and then I could have multiple checklists per project, and then when I make a task of a checklist type, then I could run a script to create a bunch of child records for that and have those to check off. I may be overthinking this. It really doesn't need to be very complicated, and that task list or that checklist does change pretty frequently as I discover new things that I need to add to that list. So I do want to make it, I don't ever want to change historical data, but I do want to be able to add new things to it for current and future things along the way. So the chair has kind of some similar things going on. I've got the same notes portal that we saw over on projects, and there's some basic time tracking built in as well. I tend to track time just based on duration. I may use the start and end date stuff in the future, but I'm not sure yet. And then sometimes I write a note about what I did during that block. But that's really about all it is for time tracking, at least for now. So I noticed something when I was talking. We were on here and we went to related records. Yeah, it looks like maybe I missed the script step to go to related records only, because I am actually showing all 10 records over here. So let's fix that. Yeah, that's what it was. We had both projects showing. So now let's go and try that again. That's more like it. So from Radical Poly Interiors, we just see the chair. If we go to projects and we go to this project and we go to related records here, then we just see those records minus the chair. So that's more like it. I had just selected the wrong option in the go to related record script step. So in terms of kind of anything else, there's not a whole lot to show right now. There is no time layout yet. There is no settings yet. Those are just kind of placeholder elements. So yeah, that's it for day one. I hope to finish this up tomorrow so I can start using it and get back to 3D modeling. But let me know if you have any questions or feedback, or let me know what you think.